City Mayor Benhur Abalos has been appointed as the new chairman of the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority or MMDA.
And new MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos has vowed to focus on improving the bus lanes along EDSA.
Isa lang po makapangako ko, I will try and do all my best para gumanda po ang serbisyo dito po sa kamahinilaan ng MMDA. Maski itong COVID na to kung lahat lang nagmamask o lahat lang nag-alcohol, gawin natin ito, maniwala kayo. Maski yung bakuna, baka mamaya, minimal na lang ang sakit
More local government units are securing deals to procure shots from UK pharmaceutical firm AstraZeneca.
Mayor Rex Gatchalian says they aim to achieve herd immunity through the inoculation of 70% of the city's population.
The government's plan to vaccinate at least 70 million Filipinos against COVID-19 will cost more than 140 billion pesos. While there is yet no clear disbursement of the allocation, LGUs are moving to buy their own vaccines.
With the ever-present threat of COVID infections, all eyes are on coronavirus shots. But how exactly are we going to fund our purchase of COVID vaccines? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs.
And welcome to this Tuesday edition of The Chiefs. And right here with us on set is, of course, Robbie Alampay. And also with us via Zoom are Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star at the port area in Manila. And, of course, Lucy Cruz Valdez, the head of News 5. Robbie and ladies, happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
What was your big story today?
Well, first of all, a reminder, prior to COVID, of course, we're still talking about COVID, pero important to remember, first anniversary ng Taal eruption, di ba? And we follow that up. We continue to follow the story of the communities. And sadly, marami pa ring mga hindi na nakabangon.
Nasa
Even nando pa rin, nasa evacuation centers pa rin, wala pa ring trabaho, hindi pa rin malinaw what's going to happen to them. But first anniversary po ng Taal volcano, which really set the tone for 2020 in the Philippines, even prior to COVID.
Well, we're hoping that our first week in January does not set the tone as well.
Hopefully.
For the rest of 2021.
Which is another big story. Di ba? I mean, worldwide, I'm sure, Ami, you're also monitoring this. Sa US, ang malaking balita is the FBI is warning that tuloy-tuloy ang mga protests and they had to warn all 50 states.
Yes, they're bracing. And tonight we're waiting for the impeachment.
The impeachment
impeachment of Donald Trump.
Yes.
So it could happen in a couple of hours. Tignan natin kung ano mangyari.
Tsaka it's especially hot because it's the run-up to the inaugural, no? So January 20.
Exactly a week from now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ipa-fast track daw nila. Tignan natin kung makakaya, kung ano mangyari. Trump will lose all his privileges as a former president kapag na ganon siya na dishonorable discharge from the presidency.
Of course, it's easy to get a vote in the lower chamber to impeach, but can the Senate convict in a week?
Well, not only that, the other question is what happens kung mag-inauguration na? Impeachment is to remove a sitting president. They're not quite sure if there's enough precedent and basis to continue. Some are saying hindi, pwede pa rin yan. Otherwise, where would the accountability be? But to Ami's point, it's not just about the benefits of a former president. People are also looking politically, is there a way to prevent Trump from running again?
Okay. And Ami, we're waiting for your segue.
Yun na nga, binanggit na nga ni Robbie that people are also bracing for violence. The FBI warned. Apart from the violence, siyempre, super spreader din yun. That's another super spreader. So, pabalik-balik yan sa COVID, di ba? So,
Talaga naman.
Akala mo
Akala ko magugulat ka namin Okay, that's Sammy Pamintuan for you of the Philippine Star. Iba talaga nasa port area, no? Okay, let's bring in our first guest for tonight. Our first guest is the incoming MMDA chairman, former Mandaluyong City Mayor Benhur Abalos. Mayor Abalos, good evening and thank you for joining us.
Yes, good evening po, and to all the viewers, magandang gabi po sa inyo.
Yes, sir. Well, sir,
Evening.
sir, let me start off with this po. Of course, Danny Lim had been in that position for what, 4 years or maybe even going into more than 4 years. Kayo po, we heard a bit of what your plans are for example, the bus lanes and all that. But what about the MMDA itself? Are you planning any overhaul, any major changes in the organization, in the personnel of the MMDA?
Well, of course, right now we're in the pandemic period. No? So the first thing to do is everything, the output, is it okay? No? As far as I'm concerned, maganda naman ang ginawa ni Danny Lim, maganda ang nangyayari. So why reinvent the wheel? No? The thing that I could do right now is review performance. Kanina, nagpa-inventaryo ko ng mga tao. I want to know kung kano karami ang tao ngayon. Tapos, are they manning the streets really, their schedules?
Okay.
And not only that, even the big projects like the U-turn slats, these things, those mandated by the law in the charter. Because there are basically three. It's more of traffic, solid waste. But of course, beyond that, right now, we also have a role to play in this pandemic.
Well, speaking about
Sir,
the pandemic-
ngayon na
Sige, Luigi,
ngayon
go ahead.
na magluluwag na, no? Well, of course, there's a surge, and today nga we hit 500,000 in the number of cases, no? But they're expecting, of course, with the arrival of the vaccines, na baka medyo mag-loosen up na. So we're expecting talaga that the traffic will be going back to normal. And we have to prepare for that, especially because we anticipate na pag nagluwag, mas maraming activities na gustong gawin ng mga tao para syempre makabawi sa kung ano man ang lugi nila. Anong nakikita nyo ngayon pa lang na mga pagbabago na gagawin nyo in terms of the policies of MMDA when it comes to traffic? Because that's still going to be the major concern.
Yes, for one, I'm quite lucky that the NLEX and the SLEX will be inaugurated soon. In a week or 2 weeks' time. Effectively, if this will be inaugurated, it will decongest at least 30% of the traffic in EDSA. But again, I reviewed these projects, and the only thing that concerns me are the U-turn slats. Sabi ko nga, itong bus lane, medyo maganda yung concept. No? Kaya maraming tatanong sa akin, Chairman, are you going to scrap it? Are you going to maintain it? No? So sabi ko, so far nakikita ko okay naman . Except that, of course, the bigger issue will be the U-turn slat. So what we intend to do, una ko pong ginawa is I would like to coordinate with the big agency, particularly the Department of Transportation of Secretary Tugade and the CHPG. Why Secretary Tugade? Because this is their pet project, the bus lane. And I would like to know about this elevated bus ramp. What are these? Ito po yung sagot sa U-turn slats. No? So before driving into that corner sa U-turn, the buses will go to this ramp. No? It's an overpass. And then the cars could now make a U-turn beneath it. No? So siguro mga 3 or 4 lang po yan, particularly between Quezon City and Caloocan. So tomorrow I will be having a meeting with Secretary Tugade. And then secondly, yung importante kasi not only the roads, no, not only traffic schemes, but most importantly the people movers. I'm talking of the LRT, the MRT, the buses, no, kaya nagkaroon po ng bus lanes. Siguro to encourage people is make life comfortable for those who will take the public buses. What do I mean? Yung po mga escalators ng LRT, mga elevators, siguro asikasuhin na lang po muna yan, matutukan ng gusto. And then, no, possibly lang, yung mga motorcycles. In the event, okay na NLEX, okay na SLEX, mag-connect na po. And for the last 3 days, medyo maluwang tayo. Okay na yung bus lane. Siguro, I was telling the staff a while ago, you study na yung motorcycles will be on the right side portion. Kasi sa ngayon po, magulo . Meron sa gitna, meron kumakaliwa, meron kumakanan. So if possible lang, no? I mean, I'm not promising this. It will still be a study, no? So that there will be order here. And the last, there is this big ambitious project of the Department of Transportation. It's called the pedestrian overpass, no? Talagang they are encouraging people to walk, as in other cities in the world, no? So this is good. Why? Because it will be covered, maglalakad ka lang. Imagine if that's along EDSA,
That's why I have to meet with Secretary Tugade to know saan na po ang project, is it budgeted, anong timetable? Because if people would only know, no, and be informed of what is happening, ito nangyayari, at least they would know na maski traffic ng konti, pero after 2 months, gawa na yung bus ramp. I mean, these kind of things. That's what I told the staff a while ago. Importante is communication, information, and at least people would know our plans so that we could get feedbacks and feedbacks from them.
Chairman, apart from traffic management, malaking role ng MMDA sa flood control.
Yes.
Alam ko medyo malayo-layo pa yung flood season natin. Pero we saw what happened dun sa Marikina just only a couple of weeks ago nung nagbagyo-bagyo. Are you planning anything new to mitigate flooding? Ganito kasi, pinakamaganda magplano ngayon, and it affected our COVID health protocols, no? Nung nag-crowding sa mga evacuation center. Meron na ba kayo at this early, meron ba kayong binabalak in terms of flood control?
You're very right, Amino, but please, I would like to inform the public how flood control is distributed. As far as MMDA is concerned, we are given a budget of about 30 million per district. So DPWH is given the bigger projects. I'm talking of about 500 million to 600 million. So kung titignan po natin itong budget na to, it's just good enough for probably maintenance, no, rehabilitation of the pumping station, mga panggasolina, etc. So ang sabi ko nga sa staff ko kanina, iikot ako. Give me a report of the worst hit the last time, and then tignan natin, baka pwedeng umingi pa tayo mas malaki dito. What are the things to be done? Like what you've told me a while ago, ma'am, it's a perennial problem. Mariquinas, truly a perennial problem. No, probably it's because of its geography. No, but that is what we're going to do. No, iikot po kami dito at aayusin po namin. I'm going to get a review of all of these things, and of course, I'm going to coordinate with all of the mayors. Yun lang naman po ang role ko because of the autonomy of each cities. The only role of an MMDA chairman is a coordinator. No, parang lumalabas talaga kung I'm just a coordinator and they are my boss. But it's about time that autonomy is good. That's given by the local government code. But sometimes because of too much autonomy, wala tayong harmony of urban planning. You see? Quezon City will have its own urban planning, Manila, Mandaluyong, no? Kanya, it's provided for by law, by the local government code. So what I plan to do is later on, siguro, i-harmonize calling the urban planners, mag-usap kami, at i-harmonize lahat ng urban planning po dito sa Metro Manila.
Chairman, sundan ko lang po yan because you've been mayor of Mandaluyong. You know how a mayor thinks. You know the politics within NCR. But
Yes, sir.
ito pong sinasabi niyo, matagal na pinag-uusapan to, di ba? Parang how do we harmonize the plans? Iba-iba ang plano. Even when it comes to traffic, iba-iba ng patakaran sa traffic. So, given what you know as a mayor, how do you convince the mayors? How do you what exactly do you have up your sleeve or that you can say that will make it different this time around?
Well, it could be done, sir. A best example is right now. Because of the pandemic, Metro Manila has only one voice in terms of policies right now. Kung sa pag-uusapan po ang curfew, nagbubutuhan po yan. If, let's say, one area would say hanggang 8, the other area would 12, they will take a vote, and whoever wins, that will be the stand of everyone. Walang pabidahan. And that was the case. That is what the group of the late Chairman Danny Lim did, no? One Metro Manila, one voice. And we intend to continue with that. No? Ngayon po nakita na talagang kailangan magkaisa. No? So it has been done before. It's not impossible, sir. In fact, it's happening right now, especially when the vaccine program will be rolling out. We will also have a big role to play by coordinating with everyone. No? We'll coordinate with the mayors and with IAPF, no? So dito talaga dapat iisa boses, hindi pwede mag-agawan, hindi pwede dapat talaga tulungan po rito.
Mayor, Chairman, napag-isip ako dun sa sinabi niya. I mean, would you say that that's one good thing that came out of COVID? Because what you're saying is true, di ba? Parang nagkaroon ng maraming practice yung mga mayors ngayon to build consensus pagdating sa pagdating sa, kung curfew kayo, dapat lahat tayo curfew, otherwise wag na lang, di ba? Or kung magla-lockdown tayo, dapat lahat lockdown. Or if we're gonna negotiate for whatever, let's all agree on ano ba yung strategy natin sa mga presyo. Would you say that that's something positive that came out of this, that at least all the mayors have gotten a little bit more practice in getting their act together in Metro Manila?
COVID is the worst thing that happened in the country, in all over the world. But may silver linings eh. It's back to basic. It's back to, to the family, back to enjoying yourself. Hindi ka na lumalabas, no? Of course, pati sa pagkakaisa, no? Ngayon po, nagulat po talaga kami na ang nangyari rito. People are so motivated, ang ating mga mayor, no? And I would like to congratulate each mayor dito. Wala po nagpabidahan, no? Lahat tulong-tulong. Kay maliit na bayan ka, kay malaking bayan ka, as big as Manila or even Quezon City, or maliit ka like Mandaluyong or even Pateros, iisa lang po ang boses. And it happened. And because of this, alam naman natin, ang talagang hot area was always Metro Manila. Dito nagsimula eh. Sa lugar po namin, sa San Juan and Mandaluyong, dito nagsimula yan at pumalat eh. So, na-contain at napakaganda na nangyayari po ngayon. And I will take about all of the mayors, lalo na po to the late Chairman Danny Lim and the MMDA team.
Okay.
Kaso
MMDA.
po,
okay.
okay, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Lucy, go ahead. Shoot your question.
Okay, so, sir, eto na lang. I was going to say nga, but yeah, we're now headed toward election season, as you know. And so these mayors will also want to mount their own strategies for, sabihin na lang natin, for, overcoming the pandemic and also all the other problems that come with urban living, no, traffic. How are you going to deal with that, considering that you're probably going to be MMDA chair through it? Right? I mean, unless the next president changes you. But kasi you only have such a small window now when you think about it to make any real decisive changes in terms of harmonizing toward a common policy.
Well, right now, the most immediate and urgent issue right now is the pandemic. I believe 1 month from now, it will be the rolling out of the vaccinations. So that's it. We're going to help them with that. At ako po'y naniniwala, even if we look at this background of COVID, dalawang pinakamagaling dito sa nakita ko, it was Vietnam or even Taiwan for that matter. And why? Because they have had experience with SARS before. This was years ago. And what did they do? They kept all of the good practices in their country. At siguro sa atin, we've learned from this COVID, dapat itago na natin ito eh. It should be part of the practices of all government, not only the local government but the national. So, ando na po eh, nakatabi na po ito. Ngayon, for the continuity of this kind of a setup, I believe, for me, it's performance speaks eh. Ang motto ko talaga is gawa, hindi salita eh. And people will see that these mayors, hindi sila nagyayabang eh. It's more of the gawa side eh, hindi salita eh. And for me, that's effective campaign by itself, so para sa akin, it's a new kind of dynamics po. Nag-iiba eh. Nagpa-paradigm shift eh.
Okay. MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos, sir, maraming salamat po for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Salamat po.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, Robbie, we do want to talk about COVID, and we've been talking about COVID vaccines for how many weeks already? This time, let's talk about COVID vaccine funding. And for that, we bring in tonight Assistant Secretary for Finance, Paola Alvarez. She's also Paola Alvarez. She's also the spokesperson of the DOF. Assistant Secretary Alvarez, thank you for joining us.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for having us.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Asec.
Asec, well, we were looking at the Philippine vaccination deployment plan attributed to the DOF, and I think you're looking at 140 billion pesos in funding for the vaccination of, I suppose, 100 million Filipinos. But looking at the numbers there, 70 million nga is still unprogrammed funds. Ibig sabihin, wala pa hong paghuhugutan ng pondo. And that's half of the entire funding. Where do you intend to get that?
Okay, so sir, just to correct, no, the numbers are, so for the Department of Health, we have allocated 2.5 billion.
Apo.
And then for the unprogrammed appropriations, it's 70 billion. And then Bayanihan 2, continuing appropriations is 10 billion. So roughly around 82.5 billion is what we're looking at. So yung unprogrammed appropriations po, pinapayagan po tayong magkaroon yan kung meron tayong any of the following. So yung excess revenue collections po, or new revenue sources, or approved loans from foreign assisted projects such as yung ADB at World Bank. So dito po, lately, nagbigay po sa atin ng report ang BIR at ang BOC, at tinala po nila na meron silang 11.2% increase sa kanilang revenue collection. So 11.2 from target. So yung iba pa pong funding sources natin ay yung mga loan na i-contract natin with ADB, World Bank, and other partners like yung ating bilateral partners na nagpo-produce ng vaccine, like for example in the US or in the UK.
Asec, yung allocation niyo, Asec, are you factoring in yung mga orders na ng LGUs? Kasi medyo malaki-laki yung mga allocation nila, 200 million, 1 billion sa Makati lang. Are you starting to factor this in para medyo mabawas-bawasan yung burden sa national government?
Opo. Actually, yung sa LGU po, sarili po kasi nilang appropriation yon. So, internal po nila yan. So, in terms of vaccine procurement po kasi, ang pagkaintindi po natin sa DOF ay yung sovereign lang po ang kinakausap ng mga vaccine producers. So, itong mga LGU would have to coordinate with the DOH and IATF kung saan po dun sa ating vaccine procurement plan sila magfo-fall under. Kasi po, ang initial po natin na pinoprocure ay specifically po para dun sa frontline health workers, yung ating uniformed personnel, yung mga umiikot at nag-enforce na yung ating lockdown ay talagang nagagawa. So, yung pong remainders, so hindi naman po kasi lahat ng vaccine sabay-sabay ilalabas, hindi po sabay-sabay yung rollout. So, depende po kung saan na po tayong vaccine. Nauna po kasi yung Sinovac, I think. And then yung iba pa pong vaccine is I think around March to this February to March po yung rollout. So depende po yun sa usapan nila ng DOH at IATF kung saan papasok yung mga pinoprocure ng LGU.
Asec, balikan ko lang yung kanina, nabanggit nyo na okay naman yung collections natin. You mentioned the BIR, customs, you also mentioned loans, but bottom line, ang ibig sabihin po ba nito, total, okay naman tayo doon. Pagdating sa buwis, walang dagdag sa buwis. Pagdating sa contributions, di kailangan dagdagan ng contributions.
Opo. Ayan po yung instruction sa atin ng Presidente na wag po tayo magdagdag ng buwis kasi hindi nga po din talaga efficient at hindi po kakayanin ng ating bansa, lalo na yung ating mga mamamayan. Kasi nga po, yung economy po natin talagang tinamaan. So kaya po tayo tumitingin sa ating multilateral partners at saka po yung iba nating bilateral partners para yung mga loan na kinukuha natin, very negotiated po yung terms. So hindi po siya mabigat in terms of yung payment at saka yung nakasama doon na technical assistance components.
Gaano ho kabigat nga ba or kagaang kung sinasabi niyo na magaang ang terms, no? What kind of terms are we talking about? I think on a grassroots level, kasi ang sinasabi ng mga tao, nako, dagdag na naman sa utang ng bawat Pilipinong papanganak, hindi pa pinapanganak, may utang na. Can you just give us an idea as to how much this is going to add to our debt burden?
So ma'am, yan po yung gusto po natin ipaintindi kasi po yan po yung normal connotation. Pero kailangan po natin tignan na hindi lang po yung Pilipinas yung nasa ganitong sitwasyon. Relatively po sa buong bansa, lahat po talaga ng bansa nangungutang. Kasi lahat po ng bansa sa buong mundo nangungutang po talaga kasi distress po tayong lahat lahat ng ekonomiya nagsara, lalo na yung mga airline industries, tourism industries, marami po talaga nagsara. So hindi po efficient na maghanap ka ng ibang sources. Number 2, yung in terms of the actual terms, pending negotiation po kasi hindi natin pwedeng ilabas kasi po prohibited po tayo from showing or the public kung ano po yung nangyayari sa negotiations. Pero kung titignan nyo po, halimbawa, yung mga ODA assistance natin from, for example na lang po, Japan. So Japan, ang binibigay po sa ating terms usually less than 1% ang ating interest rates. Tapos usually meron po yan na grace period of 10 years, payable in 40 years. So ganyan po usually ang ating terms. At yung ating kinakausap na mga bansa, for example, sila mismo yung nagpo-produce ng vaccine or nagde-develop katulad ng United Kingdom or United States. Ang kagandahan po, kaya po tayo dumadaan sa ating multilateral partners tulad ng ADB, World Bank, JICA, kasi po yung pag-procure ng vaccine, hindi po natin kaya gawin mag-isa. Dahil kung titingnan nyo nga po sa buong mundo, lahat ng bansa gustong makakuha ng vaccine. So dumadaan po tayo sa facility kung saan nagkakaroon ng equal distribution, kumbaga, na 20% ng iyong population, yun yung ia-allot sa'yo per country, regardless kung mayaman ka o mahirap na bansa. Tapos, in addition po dyan, makikipag-negotiate tayo sa ibang bansa kung pwede nating makuha yung kanilang sobrang allocation. So, kaya rin po tayo gumagamit ng multilateral partners para po makuha natin yung mga assistance na kailangan natin in terms of yung procurement nga po, at saka for example, yung storage, yung paano ba ang logistics, paano natin gagawin yung deployment, saan at anong temperature yung kailangan. So, itong mga detalye po na ito, mas madali po nating magagawa kung meron tayong technical assistance sa ating mga multilateral partners. So kasama po yan dun sa ating nine-negotiate.
Asec, may timeline na rin kasi yung arrival ng, at least yung initial batch ng vaccines, in-announce ng Malacanang, 50,000 next month and 950,000 by March coming from Sinovac. Do we know po kung nakapaglabas na yung gobyerno ng pera for at least this initial batch of vaccines?
Opo. So yun po, kasama po yan dun sa negotiation. So sa terms po kasi yan kung front load po ba o meron different payment scheme. So ito po, hindi po natin kasi talagang pwedeng pag-usapan kasi yung negotiations is still ongoing. So we are prohibited by law to divulge certain information like this. So pero pag na-close na po natin yung deal at ni-roll out na po, yun po, pwede na po nating ilabas yan sa publiko.
Pero Asec, malinaw that we are paying for the Sinovac vaccines. Hindi siya donated ng China.
Yes, we are paying.
We will be paying.
Yes.
On soft
Yes,
yung
soft
terms
term.
natin, soft siya.
Opo.
Okay. Hindi naman siya profit kapareho ng AstraZeneca. Profit-free daw yung pricing nila.
So, hindi po natin alam kung ano yung nine-negotiate po nila in terms of sa price. Kasi meron po yung depende sa doses at saka yung storage. So, baka maaari po na yung dose niya mas mura pero yung facility kung saan mo isostore baka mas mahal. So, yung cost po talaga nagva-vary. Depende po dun sa type of vaccine at saka yung deployment. So, yan po, inaayos pa rin po natin yan.
Ma'am, so the DOF is not involved in the actual negotiations. It is DOH that is doing this and you are just in charge of releasing the money.
No, sir. DOF po ang nagne-negotiate kasi po under po ng mandate natin ang mga contraction of loan, securing of loan, at saka yung negotiations. Pero in terms of, for example, yung logistics, deployment, yun po, DOH na po ang pumapasok. So tayo, nakipagtulungan po tayo kay Secretary Galvez kasi po siya yung ating chief implementer dyan. At saka po ang DOH kasi syempre kailangan po meron silang input dun sa doses, sa facilities na kakailanganin, paano natin i-deploy, paano natin i-move from, for example, Metro Manila to other provinces. So doon po sila kasali sa coordination and negotiation part.
Ma'am, we've been
Sa
talking
point-
lately about a lot about LGUs negotiating on their own, negotiating directly with vaccine manufacturers. How exactly does that work on the side of the DOF? I mean, ano ba to? Parang they negotiate, do you negotiate on the price? Is it one price for everyone? And where does their authority and their powers end to make this a reality? And what is the role of the DOF?
Opo. Actually po, sa ngayon, ang DOF po ang nagne-negotiate at nakikipag-usap sa mga manufacturing companies through the help of our multilateral partners. Yung pong sa ating LGU, hindi po kasi tayo privy dyan at hindi po kami pwedeng makialam sa internal allotment nila ng budget nila o dun sa, kumbaga, ira po kasi nila yan eh. So, sila po ang nagmamanage, oversight lang po ang DOF. So, in terms of them negotiating, wala po tayong alam masyado kung anong ginagawa nila. Kasi po, ang sa pagkakaalam po natin, sovereign lang po ang kinakausap ng mga pharmaceutical developing, yung mga nagde-develop po ng vaccine. So, hindi po natin alam exactly kung paano po sila nakikipag-negotiate at saka kung anong means po. So, hindi po sa amin po, hindi po namin masasagot yung area na yun po.
How much latitude do you have in terms of selecting what brands to actually bid for or buy? Halimbawa, may choice ba kayo ng mas mura? Meron bang mga arrangement yan whereby kung mas marami yung bibiliin ko, mas makakamura? Meron ba tayong ganyang kakayahan or leverage para magawa yan?
Actually, ma'am, ang utos po sa atin ng Pangulo ay makapag-procure para po sa 100 million nating population. So, ang goal po namin is punan po yung 100 million na kailangan natin. So, since hindi po lahat ng vaccine provider bibigyan tayo nung ganung kalaking amount, necessary po, iba-iba po talaga yung mapoprocure nating vaccine. Kasi for example, 20% na lang po yung initial na pwede nating makuha. So para po mapunan pa natin yung kulang, iba-ibang vaccine po talaga yung ating mapoprocure. So wala po tayong choice, for example, exactly kung ilan yung gusto nating makuha, pero depende po yan kung ilan yung makukuha natin. So, ang goal po namin is to mag-procure po talaga para mapunan yung buong population.
Well, ma'am, I'm just curious kasi who determines or how is it determined how many doses are ordered from which company? Is it a matter of which company has the most available at the particular time, or is it the pricing as well that is involved here?
Actually, sir, for the prices, karamihan naman po hindi nagkakalayo. Depende na lang po sa doses at saka depende po sa facilities na nagagamitin. Pero sa ngayon po, since yung ibang vaccine hindi pa po na-roll out, yung pag-procure po natin, naka-phase lang din po. So, depende, nauna yung Sinovac, sila po yung na-procure muna natin. Pero that doesn't mean na hindi tayo kukuha ng iba pa. So, kakaunti lang naman po yung nasimulan na vaccine. So, yung pinaka viable na po kasi naka-emergency use po tayo.
Yes,
yun
ma'am.
po yung
Yes.
So, kung ano po yung mauna dun sa rollout, so yun po yung inuuna natin procure. So, since Sinovac yung nauna, yung initial 20% for example, yung ating frontliners, yun po yung ibibigay sa kanila. Tapos, consequently, kung ano po yung susunod na makuha natin, ganun po ang mangyayari.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I ask kasi, sige, Amy, go ahead.
Asec, yung pambayad natin, are we tapping any loan facility from China?
As of the moment, ma'am, we only have, for example, ADB, World Bank. I don't think we are negotiating yet with China. So we're still looking into kung ano yung setup nila natin with Sinovac. Pero yun nga po, hindi po namin pa pwedeng i-disclose kasi ongoing negotiations pa po.
Yeah, but ma'am, assuming everything else being equal, assuming na okay, lahat may problema, but at the same time, lahat bubugso pagka biglang available na. Everybody will also ramp up their supplies. At a certain point, hindi po ba, especially from the perspective of the DOF, it comes down to price. You're saying hindi nagkakalaya, but by some reports, some are double the price.
From 500 to 2,000.
Oh, malaking bagay. And if you compare that, multiply that over 70 million people, malaki-laki yun, di ba? Ang punto lang po is, all things, assuming all things will eventually be equal, hindi po ba won't the DOF say na, look, at a certain point, the price is the determinant here?
Yes, sir. Siyempre po, kino-consider natin yan, pero hindi po yun yung main concern. Kasi po number one, ang concern nga po natin yung fast deployment. So kailangan nga po natin yung vaccine talaga. So kung sino yung mauna na nasa pinaka-advanced stage, syempre yun po yung mapoprocure natin. Number two, tinitake into consideration din po natin yung logistics at saka yung storage facilities. Kasi yung ibang vaccine, although mas mura sila, they are needed to be stored in a higher temperature. So yung cost po of, so tinitake into consideration din po yun. So, syempre, at the end of the day, kailangan po rin natin maging prudent. So, titignan natin yung price but not necessarily the vaccine alone. So, we need to take into consideration everything surrounding yung procurement, logistics, at saka deployment. So, dun na po tayo nag-negotiate kung paano ba natin makukuha na mas mura at saka hindi mas mabigat. So, ma-assure naman po natin yan kasi bilang DOF, kami rin po mamumblema kung saan namin kukunin yung pangbayad at saka saan po rin kukunin yung pondo kung yung bibili namin yung mas mahal. So these are things we take into consideration po talaga.
Ma'am, going back a bit, yung sinabi niyo kanina about Sinovac, so you mean hindi pa pala tapos ang negotiations with Sinovac although we already are expecting 50,000 dose delivery by next month and 950,000 the month after?
Hindi pa po siya tapos in a way na kasi na-finalize na po lahat, pati yung logistics, deployment. So kasama po kasi yun sa negotiations part. So although okay na po tayo na ito yung amount na i-deliver nila, yung other terms po, for example, na paano natin yan i-administer, paano natin move from, for example, hindi naman lahat ng frontliners natin nasa Metro Manila. So paano po natin move. So these also are part of the negotiations na hindi pa po natin na-finalize. So kasama po yun doon.
Well, actually, I was planning to zero in on the issue of price. I mean, have we resolved the issue of pricing for Sinovac, for example?
Opo. So yun nga, hindi po ako authorized para magsalita pa doon sa price na ating per dose at saka kung ano yung circumstances surrounding yung logistics at saka yung deployment at saka yung actually administer. So hindi pa po natin nakukuha yung specific amount for that. Pero of course, nasa loob pa rin po yun ng ating continuing appropriations kasi nasa DOH po yung ang budget na napasok para po sa necessary deployment at saka yung logistics together with the support na kukunin po natin sa ating technical assistance component.
So aside from price po, how much weight do you assign to preferred brands by constituents of different LGUs, no? Some of them have conducted surveys to determine that, but in general, if we go by the Okta research survey, no, where they say 1 out of 4 Filipinos are resistant, I think it's also safe to assume na in terms of brands, kung papayag sila magpabakuna, meron silang preference. Is that something that the Department of Finance even takes into consideration when you're shopping for vaccines?
Opo. Siyempre po, meron po talagang preference. Siyempre, kung ano ipapasok sa katawan mo, gusto mo, nakakasiguro ka rin po. Ang ginagawa na lang po natin, kumukuha tayo ng estimate. For example, kung sino yung mga batch na susunod sa frontliner, sino yung susunod sa indigent, sino yung susunod sa health workers at saka yung ating armed personnel. So kung nauna na po yung Sinovac at yung mga susunod na tao, ito, ano ba yung rough estimate kung ilan sila? So for example, mauna yung Pfizer or mauna yung sa AstraZeneca.
Yes.
Siyempre, meron pa rin pong preference kasi sila naman po yung magpapa-shot, di ba? So, it's either kung gusto mo nang mauna, tapos nagfo-fall ka dun sa category na yon, then pwede mo nang i-avail. Pero kung hindi pa, then you can opt to wait for the other vaccines. Pero siyempre, hindi natin maa-assure na magkakaroon ka kasi nga per batch, inuuna natin, depende. For example, yung indigent, mauuna siya sa minors, mauuna siya sa people who are 20s to 30s. So kung ayaw mo yung vaccine na yon at gusto mo yung isang brand, hindi natin ma-assure na for the next batch, meron kang makukuha na gano'n. Yung sa LGU naman po, hindi tayo nakakasiguro kung anong arrangements nila with DOH. Baka po dyan napapasok yung preferred nila. Yung sa negotiations nila with DOH, para ma-take into consideration sila dun sa batch per population na gusto nilang mabigyan ng vaccine.
Okay. Finance Assistant Secretary Paola Alvarez, Asec, thank you for joining us tonight.
Maraming
Thank you.
salamat.
Asec.
Thank you po. We will just go into a break, so please stay with us.
The lower house is also set to start the ball rolling on Cha-Cha talks. Speaker Lord Alan Velasco wants discussions to begin on January 13.
Tingin namin dito sa pagbuhay muli nitong Cha-Cha, no? Smokescreen lang ito at kabahagi ito sa tangka at plano ng kasalukuyang administrasyon, no? Na tuloy-tuloy na manatili ito sa kapangyarihan even beyond.
Maraming agam-agam that it will touch on the political provisions, especially term limits or term extension. Wala akong ganon na direktiba sa akin ng ating speaker.
And welcome back to the Chiefs. Joining us in the final stage of our conversation is former House Speaker and, well, incumbent Congressman Pantaleon Alvarez of Davao del Norte's 1st District. Congressman Alvarez, thank you for joining us and welcome to the Chiefs.
Yeah, thank you also for inviting me. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening po.
Good evening po.
We were just having a conversation with your daughter a while ago.
Happy New Year po sa buong angkan.
Marunong ba sumagot?
Mahusay po sumagot. Mailap. Mailap.
Magaling ano. Anyway, sir, this week, sisimula na, i-resume na ng Committee on Constitutional Amendments yung hearing dun sa CONAS, Constitutional Assembly, or Constituent Assembly, and you were quoted as saying na parang this is not the way to address the pandemic. But in saying that, are you saying that this is also not the right time to have a CONAS? Because in 2019, I think 2018, you were for CONAS.
That's right. Sa tingin ko, at this time, wrong timing na yan. No, isipin natin, October, month of October, yun yung last day for filing ng certificates of candidacy. So ilang buwan na lang yun from now. Hindi naman pwedeng basta madaliin mo yan. Because remember, we are not passing an ordinary bill. We are amending the Constitution. Mabigat yun. Hindi pwedeng pabara-bara tayo.
Pero ang sinasabi... Ay, sige. Ami, go ahead.
Congressman, anong reasonable timetable doon? Considering your experience in legislation, hindi siya ganun kasimple. This is an amendment. Kahit economic provisions lang. So from the proposal, from the tackling sa House, hanggang sa siguro aakyat pa yan sa Supreme Court, ano pa siya sa plebiscite, ano yung reasonable timetable to achieve anything?
Alam niyo po, sa tingin ko, kasi may mga requirements, no, sa Constitution pagka nag-amenda ka ng any provision ng Constitution, kailangan yan, merong information drive. Kailangan alam ng taong bayan yan, pinag-uusapan yan, at mahaba ho yung talakayan dyan. Hindi po natin pwedeng madaliin yan. Considering na kung ilang buwan na lang, no, before October, para sa akin, wag na sana tayo magbigay ng false hopes.
Kaya nga, sir, ako, mas basic pa nga ang tanong ko, and I think most Filipinos say this also. We've been down this road before. In fact, we do this every elections. Ay parati nilang pinag-uusapan. Ay more basic question. Seryoso ba to? Are there people in Congress who are seriously thinking of this, or is this just another exercise leading us into election season?
Alam nyo, yun nga hindi ko maintindihan kasi yung amendment ng Constitution, ang tagal ng pinag-uusapan yan. No? Nag-umpisa tayo dyan, nung umpisa ng termino ng ating Pangulo, hindi yan amendment, revision talaga ng Constitution. Changing the form of government.
The structure.
From a unitary to a federal setup. Pero hindi po natin nagawa yun. Ngayon, eto na naman tayo. Panahon ni dating President Noynoy Aquino, pinag-uusapan na rin yung economic provisions na yan na kinakailangan amendahan sa konstitusyon. Walang nangyari. Tapos, nung patapos ang 17th Congress, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, pinag-usapan din yan na amendahan yung economic provisions. Nung nag-umpisa yung 18th Congress, hindi ko masyadong narinig na pinag-usapan yan. Ngayon, napatapos, pinag-uusapan na naman. Hindi ko na maintindihan kung ano ang, bakit kailangan pa natin pag-usapan yan, na nakita naman natin na talagang gipit na tayo sa oras.
Congressman, alam nyo yung sinasabi nila, para bang napakasimple nung gagawin, no? Na magdadagdag lang naman daw sila nung linya na unless otherwise provided for by law. Pakibigyan nyo nga kami ng konteksto na kung talaga bang ganun lang ba kasimple yan, samantalang saligang batas ang ating binabago rito. But they kind of like really make it appear like this is really nothing major. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as a lawyer po, yung simple line na yan na sinasabi nila na unless otherwise provided by law, ay yun po ang napaka-dangerous sa lahat. Kasi po ang ibig sabihin yan, you are now leaving to Congress kung ano yung batas na gusto mong ipatupad. Ino-authorize mo na yung Congress yan eh. So kahit na sinasabi ng konstitusyon na yun na, bawal magmamay-ari yung mga foreigners sa real estate ng ating bansa. Pagka sinabing unless otherwise provided by law, di pwede nang i-legislate yan.
So parang kongreso na ang gumagawa ng constitution nun no? Nung particular provisions, hindi ba? Kasi sasabihin lang naman nila, lagyan na lang natin ng unless otherwise provided. But ako nga ang question ko dyan, sir, ano ba ang mga nangyari? Although alam din naman namin kung ano na. Pero ano yung mga naging major stumbling blocks doon sa objective to change the economic provisions in order to allow for more FDIs, no? Which was really the initial objective.
Umpisa, sa maalala ko, I served in the 17th Congress as the Speaker of the House. Tapos ngayon ulit as an ordinary member. Hindi ko narinig na talagang pinag-usapan niya ng masinsina. At for me, dapat ganun nga ang gagawin. Nung time ko as speaker, pinag-usapan talaga namin ng masinsinan yung pagre-revise ng ating constitution, yung unitary to a federal form of government. Pinag-usapan, mahaba po, ang dami yung committee hearings ang ginawa doon. Ngunit, yun na nga, inabutan sa panahon na natanggal ako pagka-speaker. So, kasama din doon yung nakalimutan na yung shift into a federal form of government.
Pero sir, the leadership is giving a guarantee that it will only limit any amendment to the economic provisions. My question to you is that even possible to limit everything to just the economic provisions? Aren't you just simply opening the Constitution to any and all kinds of amendments, including, for example, what you favored, federalism? If that happens, would you even push for it?
Alam nyo, parang kaso yan ang nanliligaw eh. Ang dami mong sinasabing hindi ko gagawin ito, hindi ko gagawin yan, di ba? Usap lang tayo. Pero yung usap na yun, pag nagtiwala ka, napaka-delikado po nun.
Congressman, ang gusto daw ni Presidente, tanggalin na yung party list. Pwede ba yun sa ganyan, that process applicable sa ganong klaseng amendment?
Again, ma'am, sa tingin ko, kasama din yan sa yung kailangang masusing pag-aaral. Ano? Kasi nga, yung party list na yan ay inilagay yan ng mga framers ng Constitution at pinag-aralan nila yan, pinag-isipan nila, no? Representation doon sa yung mga walang boses sa lipunan.
Marginalized.
Marginalized. Kaya lang, it turned out na ngayon, mukhang yung ideals and principles behind that provision ay na-marginalized din.
Hindi na yan economic, political na yan. So what will stop the congressman from inserting more economic changes?
Alam niyo po, ma'am, pagka binuksan po natin yung usapin dyan, maraming pwedeng mangyari. Mahirap po kontrolin yan. Ako bilang dating speaker, sinasabi ko na po sa inyo, mahirap po talagang kontrolin yan. Na yung Kongreso ay merong ibang provisions na papaguhin. Bukas na eh, kung meron ng Constituent Assembly. So once na na-convene yan, open na sa lahat ng possibilities yan.
Kaya nga po, ang tanong ko po sa inyo, dahil because you were a proponent of federalism before, and I suppose you still are,
Yes.
if that happens, na magkaroon nga ng CONAS, would you think of that as a chance to push federalism once again?
Hindi po, kasi sa tingin ko, hindi po siya possible eh. With the time left, mahirap po yan. Kagaya ng sinabi ko, unang-una kailangan pagdidebatehan ng gusto yan. Pangalawa, kailangan requirement po sa ligang batas na yan ay dapat na magkaroon ng information education drive doon sa mga taong bayan. Saan sila yung final na mag-a-approve nung amendment o revision ng ating saligang batas. Wala na pong panahon. Pagkatapos niyan, kung halimbawa, lalong-lalo na pag a shift from unitary to federal form of government, ay hindi lang mo basta pag inaprubahan mo yun, kaagad-agad okay na tayo. Hindi. Kailangan po natin ng transition period dyan.
Yeah.
Mahaba po yun. Palagay ko, nasa mga 3 years yan. Yung transition period.
I think
hindi po talaga posible.
I think, Congressman, a lot of people are with you there. Na parang, I go back to my first question, no? And my first premise na actually, but a lot of people already know na hindi, posible ito eh. By their own rules, by their own protocols, and the things that need to be done, it's not going to happen. So I'll swing to the other side. What can happen in Congress right now, both on the politics side and in terms of the reality of a Congress in an election year? Ano pa po ba pwedeng mangyari ngayon sa Kongreso?
Sa tingin ko po, dahil ngayon, kukunti lang din yung congressman na nandyan ngayon sa, nasa Quezon City, nasa House of Representatives. Hindi po physically present yan. So, pwedeng mag-Zoom, but paano kayo makakapag-usap ng gusto niyan? Minsan, walang signal yung iba, walang internet sa probinsya. Ako nga, buti na lang, gabi to ngayon. Kung hindi, hindi rin maganda yung signal natin.
Tsaka sa internet, pwedeng i-mute yung ayaw marinig.
Opo. Pag nagsasalita ka, pag ayaw nila, biglang i-mute. Naloko na.
Congressman, sabi ng mga businessman nadi-distract daw ang Congress. Ang gusto nila, i-pass nyo muna yung create. Gaano kabilis can we expect the create bill to be passed?
Kung bill lang po, palagay ko, kaya namang ipasa sa House of Representatives yan.
Bago
But
matapos.
I do not speak for the Senate. Hindi ko alam yung ano nila doon, yung pamamaraan.
Pero nakaka-distract yung chat-chat, di ba? Nati-distract. Yun ang sabi nila, nadi-distract yata kayo.
Alam niyo po, yun na nga meron tayong hinaharap ng malaking problema ng ating bansa. Itong problema nga sa pandemic, itong COVID, no? Hindi pa tayo tapos dito. Pinagtatalunan pa yung mga vaccines, kung anong vaccine yung mga bibilhin, saan bibilhin. Tapos, ang isang issue pa dyan, bago natin bilhin yan, tanungin muna natin yung taong bayan, gusto nyo ba magpabakuna? Kasi baka naman ayaw nila. Tapos bumili na tayo ng marami. Tapos masisira lang dahil yung storage period niyan, palagay ko, meron ding limit yan. Kung takot yung mga tao para magpabakuna, baka mamaya isipin nila, baka madingbaksya kami dyan. Hindi ho ganun kasimple na bumili tayo ng bakuna, tapos pinipresyon natin na magpapabakuna lahat ng tao.
Okay. Congressman Pantaleon Alvarez, sir, maraming salamat for joining us tonight. It's our first time to have you here in the show.
Maraming salamat po.
Sana suki na.
Ay, actually, sir, sinasabi namin yan nung speaker pa kayo po.
Apa. Kasi bukas po ang topic, election. Babalik talaga kayo.
Ganun ba?
Pag-usapan natin ng Davao.
Advocacy muna ako. Ayaw ko muna pag-usapan yung local elections.
Davao. National elections at Davao ang pag-uusapan natin.
Okay.
Abangan!
Thank you po.
Okay,
Maraming salamat, sir.
Maraming salamat.
Si Sir talaga, gusto niya mag-isuki, pero when he was speaker, we were trying to get him all the time. We never got him. But anyway.
Siyempre, hot seat yung speaker.
There you go. Well, that's it for this Tuesday edition of The Chiefs. We hope of the discussion will keep the conversation going. I'm Edwin Gao.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Robbie Alampay and we are One News.